I want to talk about proxy voting as one of your responsibilities as a shareholder and share some action steps that you can take. I'm Chuck Rose, certified financial planner from New Jersey. Today I want to talk about investment ownership and your responsibilities in proxy voting. I especially would like our clients to get this message and get a better understanding of proxy voting. And if others find it interesting, we hope that you do. Please leave us feedback at the end too. So we think proxy voting is very important and it just doesn't get the press that it deserves today. The challenge is that when we look at our accounts, we often take a look and we're looking either on our computer, on our tablet, or on our phone, and we see the tickers, we see the names, we see them go up and down and how they work together. Oftentimes we forget there's real underlying companies that we own and that these companies have everyday decisions to make. And those decisions can be, based on, management, business, strategy, other decisions that they have to make on a day-to-day or year-to-year basis. Shareholders, essentially that's you, have the ability to vote on these issues. And we think that's a great right. And you can make and break and change those decisions over time as a shareholder. So how does this work? Public companies typically have shareholder meetings annually. Typically they're between April and June. Historically, years ago, folks would come and bring their proxy votes or make their proxy votes at that shareholder meeting on location. And over time, companies have accepted proxy votes by mail ahead of time. And nowadays, a lot of times it's by email. Now, depending on where you hold your account and how you set your preferences, you may get them through the mail, but I would venture to guess that the majority of them today are by email. So today, it's easier than ever. And you can vote on issues like electing board members, compensation packages, approving the company's auditor, and sometimes there's even company-wide initiatives. To me, those are the more important and interesting things as a shareholder that you'd want to look at and do. With now them going by email, basically the way that it works is you look into your email and you could see that the proxy vote will typically come from a third party or it may come from the custodian wherever you hold your account. And you can click through, you can read a summary of these issues and even find a more detailed description of the voting issues at hand and vote on them right there. It literally can take as little as a minute depending on how much you want to dive in. And we suggest getting started and taking a look when you can. I also want to take a moment to discuss, before I forget, the difference between proxy voting as a stock shareholder and as a shareholder of a mutual fund or an exchange traded fund, otherwise known as an ETF. So as a general rule, the security that you own is the one that you vote on. So if you own a public company, a stock, a single stock, if you get a proxy vote or some issues to vote on, they're related to that company. If you own a mutual fund or an ETF, proxy voting on these securities is a lot less often typically, but you're voting on the issues at the fund company, not the underlying shares. And we think that's important. A couple of reasons that mutual funds and ETFs may put some proxy votes out are for things beyond ordinary daily operations. Like sometimes there's a fund merger or they want to change in a big way the mandate of the fund. So you especially want to pay attention to mutual funds and ETFs because it may change how that investment fits in your portfolio. But again, they're really all important across the board. So to recap, if you own the stock, you vote on the issues of the stock. If you own a mutual fund or ETF, you vote on the issues of the mutual fund or ETF. Now, don't forget, mutual funds and exchange traded funds own baskets of securities. So as a firm, they have the right on behalf of their shareholders to vote the proxies of the underlying companies. And that's something to really be aware of because those policies and procedures that they have in place to vote the proxies, they typically have in writing. So you can go and find out what those policies are, make sure you're comfortable with them, and make sure you understand them. So we hope that helps. I want to share a couple of quotes here for you, and I'll read them directly. One was from ETF.com talking about proxy voting. And it said, given the magnitude of assets controlled by issuers like BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, they have an outsized hand in deciding the outcome of the proposals. There's a lot of talk about that these days, and that's really no surprise because these are companies that have trillions in investment dollars through their index funds and sector funds and other different types of funds that they have. So again, yes, they are voting on those issues, But as a shareholder, you have the right to go ahead and look at the procedures and policies in place to make sure that's something you're comfortable with. Here's another quote from Morningstar, and the author of a Morningstar article said, "Would you own a business without paying attention to how it's being run or who's running it?" And that's really the point here. When you take an active approach to opening up your email when a proxy comes across, you get a sense of the names of the people running the company, who's auditing that company, and what are the central issues, because when they put a vote to proxy, it's typically a pretty big thing. It's not a daily operational issue. It's typically bigger business strategy related to compensation, business growth, or just huge initiatives. It could be borrowing or whatever it might be. So overall, we hope this helps impress on you just why the proxy voting could be important. I think personally, this can make you a better long-term investor. By understanding the issues of a company long-term, that could keep you in the game longer. And, we think that can make for better outcomes when you own quality investments and hold them a really long time. So the success rate could be high, and you get a chance to sniff out, hey, is this really a company that I really want to own long-term? Or, if you have an issue, you could bring that up to a professional team you work with and say, hey, they talked about this. What does this mean? I'm not sure this sits well with me. So here's a quick action plan that I put together for you. Very simple. Again, hope you found this educational, but we hope you take action. First of all we'd suggest, and I think this is all we need to say, but make a commitment to yourself to at least look at the proxy votes. When you get that in the mail or by email, click through. It could be really important, and it gives you a sense of what's going on with your investments. If you want to go deeper as a second point, find out more if you own a mutual fund or ETF about the proxy voting policies of that company. And then again, finally, a lot of times don't take things at face value. Don't make assumptions based on broad marketing labels. A lot of times these days, there's huge growth in mutual funds or ETFs that say, hey, we're values driven, or this is how we make decisions, or, sold on the label of environmental or ESG. And that's great, right? But these funds are huge. So their policies, it's going to be hard to please everyone exactly as they wish. And there's a lot of options out there. So if you want to go in deeper and look at the procedures, you can really get an idea of what's under the hood. Again, it's hard to do that, in 5 minutes of looking online. As a general practice, a couple times a year, take a look at what you own. You can go to the company's website and dig in, or call their 800 number. So as professionals, we really don't want to tell our clients how to vote, but we want to tell them to be engaged, understand your investments, and this really builds success over time. So we hope this helps. If you'd like to learn more about working with me, please click the links below. Please email me any questions you have. Please like, subscribe, and share. And again, as I always say, if there's questions, if there's topics you want to hear more of, please share them. Be happy to cover them in a future show. And thanks again.